Hi everyone, Vicky here, hope you're doing well. So today I'm going to show you how I made this cute birthday card with this adorable little unicorn and holding some balloons. So it's using the Magical Unicorn set from Crafter's Companion, and I stamped the image onto some Nina cardstock with my favourite things Extreme Black. So this is the purple blend, tri-blend, so I'm going to use all my tri-blends for this. Not all my tri-blend pens, but I'm going to use all tri-blend pens, if that makes sense. Yeah, it made sense to me. I did debate just doing block colouring rather than doing any shading, but the last time I did do that, I was about halfway through and I felt really annoyed with myself because I do like having that little bit of shading in there. So I will be doing some shading. So I'm doing every other stripe of her mane and her tail in the purple, and I'm just blending from the darker shade on my tri-blend through the mid down to the light. It's all quite small sections, so I don't feel like I need to lay down the lightest colour first and then work my way back up through and down again with these. For the second stripe, I'm using the bright pinks. It does have a slightly purple tinge to the darkest shade, which I actually quite like against the purple, the actual purple. That's the one. It just gives it that nice look, which I'm enjoying at the moment. I ummed and ahed about what colour to use for the unicorn horn, and I decided to use some ice blue. I thought that would be quite a nice little contrast. So I just did, rather than shading the horn, I did two of the stripes in one shade and then the next shade down in the other. I'm using blue turquoise for the first balloon, so I'm just laying down the darkest colour where it would be behind the balloon next to it and being cast into shadow. I'm keeping the shading on this quite simple, even though I am adding shading and some dimension. Nothing too strenuous with the shading for these. I didn't want to really try and make it too complicated. I wanted it to be cute and fun. So this is the Coral blend, which are the darkest three coral shades. Coral, depending where you're from, I suppose, whichever way sounds best to you. That one, anyway. So that's the one that I'm doing with that. So I'm just blending again from darkest to lightest. As I was doing the lightest, I realised, it is a sphere, so maybe the light should have been in the centre, but then I thought the shade was casting, and it made me and ah about my decision, and I eventually decided to just go with what I'd done. And then I was going to use the citrus greens, however, the darkest shade was a bit too dull for what I wanted, so I decided to go with the citrus yellows instead, just because I wanted to keep the balloons quite bright. Obviously, they are going against an ink blended background. Now, the background that I have used and will be using soon is one that I did in my last video. So if you go back onto that video, you'll be able to see exactly how I made the background. I didn't want to repeat it too much. So I'm doing pale pink for the hooves and for the inside of the ears. And then I'm going to do my standard trick that I love to do now, which is to take my colourless blender, and I love this Copic colourless blender. It's the best colourless blender ever. And the palest of the pink shades. And then what I'm doing is I'm laying down the colourless blender. I'm doing some lines of shadow, just like a quick little line with the lightest of the pinks, and then blending that back out with the blender. So what that'll do is it'll give me the look that the unicorn is still white, but just with that hint of colour, so it's not literally just the white paper, because that just looks a bit too stark as far as I'm concerned, and I don't like it like that. So this just gives that hint of colour, but you can tell it is still a white unicorn, which is what I was wanting. And I'm going to cut that out with the corresponding die. So there is my little character cut out, and this is the ink background. As I say, if you check out my previous video, it'll show you exactly how I made that. So I'm then going around this just with my black marker and the chisel tip, which will give me a formatting layer so that I can do that without having to try and cut an incredibly thin layer or get it to be centered, which just wouldn't work. Again, this is just a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 note card, and I'm going to take some tape and some glue to stick my background down to that. So bear with me while I get my glue out, because I do love this glue. I think I need to invest in some more. I did have a different kind of glue to be my replacement when this one runs out, but I don't like it. I tried using it and it messed up my card. So we will not be using that anymore. But anyway, moving on from my slight grudge against that other cardstock. I'm going to put that down there and make sure it's nice and securely stuck. And then I've just got some scrap black card and I've just trimmed that down. I'm going to pop it into my Misty. This is just my mini Misty because I'm just using that. And this is one of the Peekaboo dies from Crafter's Companion again. And I'm just taking the sentiment from this. So on your birthday, just because I think it's nice. It's a change from happy birthday, but it makes it very clear what it's for. So I am just lining that up, and then I'm going to use my anti-static bag just to make sure, because I'm going to heat emboss this. I'm using some clear embossing ink. I'm going to load that up and press it down a couple of times to make sure I have a nice clear impression. And I'm going to move that out of the way. And then I am going to get some white embossing powder for this. I'm going to take that out of my Misty. And I did think that I was being really clever, just pouring it on there and thinking I could tip it back in, and that just was not working. It was going everywhere. So I quickly did it into an old card blank. This is just a piece of scrap card that I've got to the side of me most of the time. And I just added a bit more on to make sure it was all nice and fully covered. Move that out of the way, and then I just need to get my heat gun, which is a lovely bright shade of pink. Goes quite nicely with my unicorn card actually. And get that really well heated up. So bear with me while I wait for that to heat. I always heat the back of my cardstock first as well, and then I'm going to melt that powder, and it gives that beautiful bright white writing on there. So I've trimmed that down to make a little banner, and then I've also got my image. So I'm going to stick all these, well, I say all of these, both of these up with some foam tape. So I'm going to pop a little bit of foam tape behind my sentiment, and my sentiment was the perfect width for my foam tape, which worked out rather nicely. So I'm going to take the backing off that. I'm going to put that in the top right corner, and I'm going to put it against, not right to the edge of the card, but just to where the black foam matting is. So it kind of looks like it comes in off that, which I quite like. And then I'm going to cut some more of my foam tape down to fit in behind my unicorn. So I'm just cutting all these bits of foam tape down to try and make them fit behind the unicorn. Bear with me, it's not the most glamorous thing I've ever done. Definitely not the most interesting to watch, but it needs to be done to make sure that there's plenty of support behind there. Because what I don't want is me to post the card and then it to get squished in the post, because that would just be sad. It would make me very sad. So that's that. And then I'm going to take the backing paper off of those, and then I'm going to stick that down at the bottom. I am putting it off centre. It is purposefully off centre. If you do decide to put something purposefully off centre, make sure it's far enough off centre that people will realise it's meant to be, and not just think that you can't stick something in the middle, because that will just stress you out, because it stresses me out. So I'm putting some sparkle pen. This is just a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen over the top, just to give a little bit of shine to those balloons. And then I'm going over the balloons with glossy accent, because, you know, balloons are shiny. So I'm going to add a bit of extra dimension and shine to them. So bear with me while I cover those in. Once I've done those, this will get set to the side so that it can all dry, because obviously the glossy accents go on slightly cloudy and then they dry really nice and clean and shiny. But that is pretty much the card done once those glossy accents dry. So leave it with me, and ta-da! There you go. So that's what it looks like once they've all dried. And I've also put some more of that shiny pen over the black. I hope you have enjoyed this, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye!